Hey, Mike and Missy here. We recognize that this can be an intense time for marriages, and so we want to give you guys some practical tips to thrive through this crisis.
And if you have kids, we're going to throw in a bonus parenting tip that will help you disciple your kids throughout this time as well. So here we go. So what's the problem? When you're in a crisis, it can lead to a collapse in communication. And this happens when you're anxious, when you're uncertain, when you're distracted, when you're just mentally weary. I mean, communication skills are bound to falter. And so hence you have a lot more arguments, there's more frustrations, there's more assumptions on what your spouse is saying than what your spouse is actually saying, because you hear things differently. So we're all experiencing this crisis together, but you're experiencing it in a different way from your spouse. You're experiencing the loss of things differently. And so you've got to think through what that looks like and what is the prescription for that.
Yeah, guys, context is king here. And that's the prescription for us today, that you need to understand the other person's context. And you need to give them context for what you're communicating, because that is king. So check this out in Proverbs 25, verses 11 and 12. It says, "A word fitly spoken is like apples of gold in a setting of silver." I don't know what we do with apples of gold in a setting of silver, but that sounds beautiful, right? Apples of gold in a setting of silver. And then verse 12 says this: "Like a gold ring or an ornament of gold is a wise reprover to a listening ear." So you see there, the gold is this context for what the other person is receiving. And so what does this look like practically? What's the practical outworking of this? Well, the way you do this practically is by explicitly communicating your motivations and your intentions up front. And guys, I know that seems like it takes a lot more work as a communicator, but it will save you a bunch of time. It will save you arguments and frustrations, because now the other person isn't assuming, right? So here's what that looks like. Here's how you set your apples in gold and silver. Is you say, hey, Missy, that's a great idea you just shared, and I love that idea. What if I suggested this and maybe this can make it better? Or you could say, babe, I love you and I trust you and I want you to know that. And then you go into what you're saying. So you're just kind of setting what you're saying in gold and silver, and you're setting a context. If you don't do that, you allow the other person to choose the context. That's when assumptions happen. That's when frustrations, miscommunication happens, because the other person chooses it, which is the breeding ground for conflict, because it wasn't the context that you want. So what you want to do, if you want a word fitly spoken, is to set the apples in a gold setting of silver, and to do a gold ring, an ornament of gold, so that your reproof is wise to a listening ear.
Oh, that's really good. And for your parenting bonus tip, kids ask why. When this starts in the toddler phase, they ask why all the time. And sometimes it gets a little annoying. But we're telling you now that you need to embrace that. Embrace them asking the why. You want to give them context for their world around them, right? You want to create this epistemological foundation for them, which is just means what you know what you know, right? So it'll set them up on a foundation. And if you don't know, you can look it up and embrace that. You have the opportunity to teach them, like we talked about last week with Deuteronomy 6, right? Set them up on a foundation for Jesus, but also just for the creation and the world around them. So embrace those why questions and just have fun with your kids with it.